What's really good? You're in the place to be with the person to be with, and that's me, your brother, the amazing self-becoming Jay, and you're locked into a Black King's perspective. The baddest, blackest, most based space on their internet right now, where we look at current events, news, and trends from a 100% unadulterated, pro-Black, Pan-African perspective. Holding it down for Black people USA and the Black African race worldwide. Shout out to Black brothers and sisters everywhere. Yeah, but enough sweet talk. Let's jump right in that thing. You came here for the video, and the topic of today's video is Iran is already a quagmire. The new white world imperialism, white racism, and the stakes for Abibiman, aka the Black world community. Now, I don't think you need me to tell you that the situation that the Americans face in Iran is already a quagmire.
It takes 2 or 3 interceptors to shoot down 1 ballistic missile.
But I am.
It's pain at the pump for just about everyone.
Because it obviously is.
Iran now escalating attacks on American interests in the region.
But yeah, check it out. Just to make sure that we're all on the same page, let me explain exactly why I'm calling it a quagmire, even though the conflict isn't even a month old. What I mean by a quagmire is when a nation starts a military conflict with another nation, the consequences for initiating that conflict are unforeseen. And that conflict becomes increasingly complicated and increasingly difficult for the nation that initiated the conflict to extract itself from without losing face or losing prestige. So now let's see how my description of a quagmire matches up with events in Iran for the United States. Well, starting from the top, America and her ally Israel attacked Iran on February 28th, initiating the current conflict, and easily meeting the first requirement on our quagmire checklist. Now, the way the United States situation in Iran fits our second description is kind of funny. I mean, were the consequences of the United States starting a conflict with Iran unforeseen? Like, I'm not a military analyst or anything like that, but even I knew that in the event of a serious conflict with Iran, that they would close the Strait of Hormuz and strike American assets in the region. It was predictable and predicted, but it seems somehow, some way, the current American administration didn't get those memos.
They hit Qatar, Saudi Arabia, UAE, Bahrain, Kuwait. Nobody expected that. We were shocked.
And this thing keeps threatening to get even bigger. For example, when this thing started, we weren't told that attacking Iran's infrastructure was part of the deal, but now...
President Trump says the U.S. will, quote, obliterate Iran's power plants.
So, yeah, I think we're fair in saying that the situation in Iran fits the second description on our list. And now for the sexiest item on our list. The thing that really puts the quagmire in quagmire. Which is, when a military conflict becomes increasingly complex and increasingly difficult for the initiating party to extract itself from, without losing face, prestige, and in some cases even power. Now, when I say an increasingly complicated conflict, think of something spinning out of control, or a military mission whose scope continues to widen. And in this case, we've gone from regime change.
So this is a change in the regime because the leaders are all very different.
To opening the Strait of Hormuz, to possibly occupying Iranian territory.
There's a report in Axios this morning that the Trump administration is looking at military options for Karg Island, the possibility of occupying it.
In similar fashion, we've gone from missile and airstrikes to troops, and yet even more troops being positioned in the region. Yeah, the situation is definitely getting a little bit more complicated. Is this conflict increasingly difficult for the United States to walk away from without losing face or prestige? Yeah, I got an idea. Let's ask Iran what they think.
Reza, tell us more about Iran's response to the US's 15-point ceasefire proposal.
Yeah, they've rejected it.
It's pretty defiant for people losing. I think we could go ahead and mark off item number 3. So yeah, this thing's a quagmire. The United States can't win, and the deeper it goes, the worse it will get. And the reasons why the Americans will be unsuccessful in their attempt to subdue Iran are twofold. 1, the Americans are unprepared, and 2, the Americans don't have the heart for a long fight. This includes the administration and the American public. The only thing Iran has to do is withstand the attack. However, this situation isn't an anomaly, which leads us to the next topic of our video. I believe for me to say that white racism is gaining traction in the public sphere in Western European nations, which would include places like the USA, Canada, and Australia, will come as no surprise to anyone watching or listening to this video. Not only are the talking points of white racists increasingly shaping public discourse in these countries, but they're having an influence in the political arena as well.
Look at the Labor Department's page. Experts in Christian nationalism and white nationalism believe that what you're seeing here, the themes, they're no coincidence. For example, they keep making posts like these with exactly 14 words and sometimes exactly 88 characters. Experts in neo-Nazis and Groyper movements, they say that these numbers, 14 and 88, are references to neo-Nazi slogans, and posts with 14 words can be used as a sort of quiet way for Nazis to find each other online. These are only 3 examples that you're seeing here, but there are a lot of posts with these themes online. So I guess my question for you as an academic, as an expert in this space is all of this really just a coincidence?
It's really hard to believe it's a coincidence when these instances keep happening.
Likewise, I'm sure that America's recent imperialist binge hasn't gone unnoticed by anyone in the audience. Not only have we just finished talking about the country's moves on Iran, but the Americans explicitly and openly invited the rest of Europe to join them in a new mission of white world conquest.
For 5 centuries, before the end of the Second World War, the West had been expanding. Its missionaries, its pilgrims, its soldiers, its explorers pouring out from its shores to cross oceans, settle new continents, build vast empires extending out across the globe. This is what we did together once before. And this is what President Trump and the United States want to do again now, together with you.
In addition to attacking other countries,
American justice for Nicolas Maduro and his wife Celia,
and even naming their next victim.
I do believe I'll be having the honor of taking Cuba.
Now the question is, why? In my estimate, both phenomena, the increasing popularity of white racism in the public sphere and calls for white world conquest, are both being propelled by one single factor: white social anxiety.
One people, one nation, and immigration!
This social anxiety is a result of white populations throughout the Western world, with the United States in particular, having to confront the obvious internal contradictions of certain ways and systems of thinking and doing things. The public conversation around immigration, demographics, and race in these countries, and America's naked imperialism, are attempts to rectify those contradictions in order that the systems in question, white supremacist ideology, and the economy as defined by globalization, may continue to survive and operate. That contradiction in white supremacist thought arises when the belief that whites are inherently better than other groups in all the categories that matter meets the apparent reality that whites also need biased systems that tip the scales in their balance in order to dominate. For example, either pursue an immigration policy that gives preference to white immigrants, or lose the racial character and control of the country. Either white culture dominates, or white people live in a sea of foreign, non-white cultures. Similarly, the choice is seen as being between enforcing a narrative that not only centers but celebrates European history, culture, and people, or we include the narratives of people who were enslaved and colonized by Europeans, narratives that make white people feel bad. It's not mere coincidence or simply cause and effect, however, that is causing white populations around the Western world, when faced with these apparent choices, to reconsider old ideas and support for policies that would have been labeled taboo not even 15 years ago. It's not mere coincidence because systems of white supremacy were originally implemented to address this very issue. When the people of Europe left that continent to invade and colonize the rest of the planet, they found themselves minorities in majority non-white situations. The only way to ensure white preeminence and dominance in the new colonial societies the whites were building was to impose systems of racial oppression and racial hierarchy. Failure to do so would mean losing control of the situation. It's that sort of straightforward thinking that originally put systems of white supremacy in place, and that's the same kind of straightforward thinking that current white populations are using to reconsider the reasoning behind dismantling such systems. The second major internal systemic contradiction that white populations, but Americans in particular, are dealing with is of economic origin. And that's the incongruence of an economic system that is both booming and being hollowed out at the same time.
The economy is booming. The U.S. is the hottest economy in the world. We're hitting on all cylinders.
In a new survey from CareerBuilder.com, 78% of workers say they are living paycheck to paycheck to make ends meet, up from 75% last year.
Unfortunately, though, for us, fam, we're going to have to pause our conversation right here. I'm having some kind of issues with sound quality, and the best way to fix that and the fastest way to fix it is to break this video up into 2 parts. If you like what you've been hearing and seeing so far, you know what to do. Drop me a like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Help the algorithm do what it do. See you in the next video.